in your life.
Hello, LibrePlanet 2021. This keynote talk is titled 10 Years of Empowering Activists and Everyday People through Free Mobile Software, and will be presented by Nathan Freitas, the founder and director of the Guardian Project, an award-winning free software mobile security collaborative with millions of users and beneficiaries worldwide. Among Nathan's many accomplishments, he helped to create Orbot, which brings the privacy benefits of the Tor network to Android devices. And he co-designed the Haven app with Edward Snowden. Nathan's work has generated a lot of interesting stories and important insights, and in this talk, he'll tell us a few of them and try to project and forecast for computing freedom and software in the future. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And as I said, everyone, I'm in IRC, and I know many of you are tired, it's late, Commodore 64, ukulele, see, I'm live. You've made it to this point, and I really appreciate all of you being here. I'm decided not to use slides, not to use videos. I have lots of props, show and tell, and stories. This is called talking stories, a bit. Yeah, you'll see this C64 it still works, but my children smashed it. And if you don't have children yet, you'll learn that they smash all your precious things, especially computing things, but you still love them. So, but I wanted to just thank you to Free Software Foundation and the LibrePlanet organizers for having me. I was also really honored to be included with Julia and Nadia, people who I respect. Builders and thinkers. The idea of a European Open Technology Fund is something near and dear to my heart, in that a lot of our work has been funded by the US Open Technology Fund, which you can see on their website. It's very transparent, and they funded a lot of amazing work. And I'm all for things that funnel public government money into free software, open source, privacy, securely audited solutions. So that's a great idea. And Nadia and I were actually part of something called the Assembly Program as part of the Berkman Klein Center at Harvard. I'm just across the river from Cambridge, so I get to dabble over there. And she was really awesome with, one day I wanted to bring my daughter by her Center for Bits and Atoms, because I thought it was a really interesting place. And I thought that it'd be fantastic to see my daughter, have my daughter see someone that is doing work like that she could see herself kind of be represented by. So I really appreciated Nadia taking us in that day. I also wanted to just take a moment to reach out to the Asian American members of the free software community, and maybe listening to this talk and say, right now it's been a tough week for people that are Asian American in the United States, with violence perpetrated against them in not only this week, but before. I grew up in Northern California in a culture that was fully intertwined, being Catholic, growing up around the Filipino community, Vietnamese community, Japanese community, all who had been through many things then. And it's never been easy, but it's been quite difficult with violence like happened this week. And I just wanted to say, you're welcome here. Like, all of you are so welcome. I know free software isn't always the most easy community to be a part of if you aren't sort of white and male, but I know that that's been worked on and focused on, and something that people want to actively address and improve. And I appreciate all of those of you who are doing that work. And I appreciate the diversity I have seen here so far. But I really just want to reach out to all of our Asian American brothers and sisters out there and say you are welcome here. So why am I here? Who am I to be here with all of you, taking up your precious time? Well, it was about 17 years ago that I took a new turn, a different path in my life. At the time, I had been so excited I was sort of obsessed with early mobile technology, and maybe I'll bring out my first show and tell. This is an old Palm Pilot called a Tungsten, or this is maybe the Pacific. This is actually a prototype device. It was the first ARM Palm Pilot. And I really loved kind of the Palm Pilots, the Blackberries, these early pocket computers. This one, super cool. You could open it and extend it and close it, and has a neat little pen. And I had gotten into that field of writing in the first kind of era of mobile computing, Apple Newton, Palm Pilot, and had started a software company that was building actually secure mobile software platforms, trying to use, build new systems for moving data that kind of were platform centric and not just proprietary business apps. And we actually got acquired, or sort of acqui-hired, honestly, by Palm. And actually, yeah, I should say we also worked on WAP. We worked on anything that was small. There were some early Linux kind of things from Sharp then, and J2ME. Like, we were full, all good, all mobile. SMS, everything we could do to bring that into kind of business environments. So I got bought by Palm and started working there. And I really was excited about that life. But I then started to quickly encounter all the limitations that Palm faced, because they used not only a closed proprietary system, but one that they didn't completely own. They had to license the kernel, and they could only use one thread at a time, and it was just nuts. And then I wanted to try to bring developer tools and Java at the time, but also I proposed bringing a Linux system onto ARM chips at Palm, and there was just no path for it to get done at the time. And it started to frustrate me that I felt that I had seen a path for pushing these things forward, and it couldn't be done. I also really loved in my life, separate from work, doing volunteering. And I had been providing assistance through my skills to a lot of different groups, teaching kids. I actually lived in New York, so I'd take the 4 train up to East Harlem and teach at an after-school computer program, and teach kids how to write BASIC at the time and build BASIC web pages. And I loved doing that. And then I also started volunteering. A friend at my office said, this nonprofit needs some help with their computers. This is 1998, by the way. And turned out to be a group called Students for a Free Tibet. And Students for a Free Tibet was an amazing group that had been born out of the sort of Beastie Boys Tibet freedom concerts. But it was young Tibetans and non-Tibetans working together to counter China's attacks on the Tibetan people in exile and to support freedom for the Tibetan people. So here are some people really fighting for freedom, loving freedom, wanting freedom. And here I was in this technology space where no one could sort of, see a path towards freedom. And they weren't working together. They weren't like connecting. And so, I really wanted to bring those sides of my life together. And I did. In 2004, I left kind of the Silicon Valley world and started working on free software early in the first days around RSS and some other tools that I saw as important with syndication. But then I quickly understood that my experience in mobile and with security and the work I had done at Palm would help actually activists with private communication, because there was actually, at the time, there was no way to send a private text message. There was no way to have a device with software on it that you could trust, that was written, in a way that was reputable, that was tested, that was audited. There was some things called like secure phones that were very expensive, but it just was kind of not a viable path. So it was scary to leave the opportunity that I had at the time, but I knew it was the right thing to do. And I realized like I had the freedom to do it. And this is where I want to get into the idea of free and freedom. I had a certain kind of freedom that I could take that risk I don't come from a wealthy background, but I had a moment where I could take this opportunity to try to have a different kind of impact in my life. I know there's a lot of people out there, and maybe some of you don't have that freedom and are challenged with kind of taking a leap into free software full time, or to taking your passion and connecting it with technology. And I think we all need to do more to support that. I really enjoyed the discussions today on funding, on how to sustain yourselves, how to work together to kind of build teams, and through like usability, through localization, through other skill sets. All of those things are needed, and they're all opportunities to widen the circle. So now one of the things I want to talk about really quick, because I see there's some great chat about this, is things like the Pine phone and the Librem phone. This is my palmed version. So these things are great, but I actually met one of my early contributors to Guardian Project, the main kind of almost founder with me now, Hans Christoph Steiner, who works in the Debian project and F-Droid, because he would take old Palms and try to put Linux on them. And that was something that we loved. Obviously, Raspberry Pis and the Raspberry Pi tablets and all the people building kind of interesting portable personal electronics, this is happening now, and it's really exciting. The one device that really excited me is the chip and the pocket chip. That was sort of a strange BlackBerry clone and competitor. And I actually got Signal running on this because through Signal's libraries, I built a command line Signal client, which was pretty hilarious. But I will call out another effort. Obviously, Replicant and Calyx OS are efforts to bring better software and free software specifically to ARM hardware. But I am excited, and I just want to support those projects, PinePhone. And we've talked with Librem and others in the past about how do we bring Tor, how do we bring encrypted matrix, and kind of committing to that software infrastructure on those devices. The pocket chip, this thing is ridiculous. I mean, it was just sort of a thing they could do, but it was like if you ever took apart an Atari joystick and you opened the top and it had the whatever these called, dimples. It's basically the Atari joystick dimples. So, but yeah, that was interesting and fun. But I just want to make that point, put a pin in the point of inclusivity and understanding, the freedom you have to contribute. And again, really trying to figure out how can we widen contribution to free software? How can we build more sustainable funding? And how can we support programs that bring more people in? That's actually a key part of what we do at Guardian Project. One of the most interesting things we did was work with a group in Zimbabwe on being our not only trainers in the area, but testers and quality assurance testing. And they're activists who also knew exactly what the software should do. And we were able to work with them. And that made me very happy when we did that. All right. Book break. I'm going to show you some books that I have. I'm sure a lot of you have been reading over the last year. And, on this topic of, and maybe you can post in IRC right now, your favorite book you've read. Maybe it's a EPUB or a e-reader book on the new hacked e-readers that I heard about. But these are paper books. And this is an excellent book everyone should read called Black Software by Charlton D. McIlwain. What I really love about this is it kind of breaks the myth of like, why isn't X community involved in technology? And they have been. For instance, the Black community in America has been, and they have been for a long time. And I just want to read a really interesting, tasty piece of this. On May 5th, a group of 150 protesters stormed Warren Weaver Hall at Kent State University and liberated the computer center. They threatened to detonate a homemade bomb that they had strapped to the towering computer console. To the protesters, that computer symbolized and showcased state power. They believe the state used that computer to exercise control and advance its own interests and prerogatives. To those protesters, that computer extended the oppressor's reach. Powerful, huh? Having seized its oppressors, the protesters demanded that the university pay a $100,000 ransom. They were ultimately thwarted by the police. Now, a decade later, one of the main protagonists of this book, Ken, and I got to find his name, but he stood in that same hall, not to liberate the computer, but to learn how to use it. He was participating in a summer program that introduced high school students to computer programming. So there's a bunch of stories in this book like that about using how Black community tried to use and have been using and accomplished many things in liberating themselves through technology. All right. On a different, this is just like super geeky. If you haven't read Sunburst and Luminary, an Apollo memoir, it's by one of the programmers of the software for landing the Apollo lander. And it's just really interesting to see how difficult it was and how long it took to accomplish something. Working in the Tibet movement, you know, they've been working to liberate themselves for 60 years. And even my own work there for 20 years is like very difficult sometimes to maintain hope. And I know over this last year, people that have been working on open source health hardware, ventilators, faced many challenges. And many of you out there who are trying to build better systems, every year, you know, you get some moment of like, oh, this is just much too hard. And there's things that are hard human-wise, and there's things that are just technically hard. This is a mixture of both, and it's a great book. All right. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of Neal Stephenson fans here, and what makes me sad about Neal Stephenson is that most people just read Snow Crash and stop. Maybe there's some other books that have been read, but books that inspired me early on, actually, in activism were The Big U, where, you know, there's all sorts of interesting hijinks that go on with, In the Beginning was Command Line. I actually have that. That inspired me. And, you know, this is kind of a college campus, interesting, hilarious life about, I don't know, it's hard to even describe. But there's another book that about being a climate activist and working, you know, on the Charles River, and he just has so many interesting books about different facets of life. And this book, Interface, which he wrote under a different name, talks about an election where the candidate is controlled by a chip in his brain and signals coming from the internet, which would never happen in real life, of course. All right, last book, and then I'll get back to talking a little bit more about my work. I've often been inspired in my work by nonviolent direct action, peaceful organizing, people, and I know that, you know, the free software effort is, thank you, Zodiac, thank you very much. Free software is a movement, right? It's a campaign, it's a fight, a nonviolent fight. And one of the best books to learn about tactics for organizing, for inspiring, is this one called Beautiful Trouble. And it says a toolbox for revolution. The Apollo book was called Sunburst and Luminary. There you go, Sunburst and Luminary. All right, so Beautiful Trouble was written by my friend Andrew Boyd, who was one of the Billionaires for Bush, which is a tongue-in-cheek group. And it has tactics, principles, theories, case studies, and practitioners. And, you know, one of the cool ones is the 99% bat signal, which you might have seen, people displaying a huge light around New York as a tactic. So you can see that there. But so many other tactics that you and your projects and your efforts and your movements can use to boycott, to sit in, to have parties, to make stickers, to do, you know, virtual protests, to do real protests. So this stuff is great, and Andrew's a real student of it. And I'm actually working with Andrew right now on something called Climate Clock, which is building open source climate clocks that count down to 2030. And if you check out Climate Clock, they just took over the clock in Union Square in New York City with their clock. There's a countdown clock there. Anyhow, reading, it's good. I hope you all have time to read. And these things fuel me and inspire me in so many ways. So over this last year, I'm sure all of you have been trying to figure out what to do to help and to be useful and to make an impact. I know that we were really concerned about a lot of the privacy intrusive outcomes of the pandemic. And I know RMS and others have talked about this with people moving to proprietary software. One of the things we did at Guardian Project is actually focus on ensuring groups had a secure way to easily deploy Jitsi and utilize that in the human rights and internet freedom space. And we were actually successful in migrating a number of our partners over to using Jitsi Meet, to using Matrix instead of Slack, instead of Zoom, and that other infrastructure. These things are key, the sort of sovereignty for an organization to know that they have control, that there is end-to-end encryption, or the servers they control have been key in this time to their privacy and security, especially when they have state actor adversaries. So you might have known an app called ChatSecure or Gibberbot originally. We worked on bringing encrypted messaging to XMPP historically. So we worked on XMPP for many, many, many years and helped support bringing OMemo encryption to mobile devices. And we loved it. As time went on, we realized that, we felt that standards were evolving and that people needed something they could use from a web browser more easily, that they could access from multiple machines, that could maybe bridge to other protocols. And so our decision was to move to Matrix, and we've been really happy working on that with our what we call our Keanu platform. Now, one of the most interesting things that I want to share with you today, and I'm going to put a link in the IRC now, is an app, and this is it's still in beta, and we're working on finishing it now, but it's called Circulo. And this is where I want to get to something maybe that RMS also said earlier today, or maybe in a different talk, which is, and I'm sure many of you feel this, which is, yes, I'm glad you got the Keanu joke for the Matrix platform. Keanu is Polynesian word for wind. It's nothing about Matrix the movies. So that's our joke. So we decided we don't want to build another chat app. We don't need another group chat app. We don't need another thing to replace IRC. What we did hear from a lot of journalists, and particularly women journalists in parts of the world, is that they were physically being threatened doing their job and doing their work. And they needed some kind of panic button, some way to alert each other, stay secure. We had built a number of panic button apps. And so we worked with a group called Article 19 in Mexico City. And we designed something that's not a chat app. It's a end-to-end encrypted, secure group kind of check-in system. And it's called Circulo. Built on the Matrix system, Matrix platform on our Keanu libraries. And we rolled out the beta last year. And we did this in co-design with people that never thought they'd ever be able to kind of build their own system and app. They were always being given something from someone else. And we decided that we should follow their lead and to figure out what threats they're facing and how to build that. So that's a big thing to what we've done, is to do co-design, do collaboration, and to move away from things like ChatSecure in the past, where we're building an app that says, well, this competes with Signal, or this competes with Telegram or IRC, et cetera, and say, what else can we use encrypted messaging for, right? So that's a big piece of our work. Now I want to step back. Many of you might know Orbot and use Tor, and maybe use Tor on your phone. And yes, we built Orbot, and that was another big step for us, was to realize that something we could do would be to build Tor into more things. And Orbot is one of those things for Android phones. But in fact, I'm a bit more excited about the work we've done with something called Haven, and the work that we've done in thinking about, running Tor on Raspberry Pis as a infrastructure for IoT, and how you can bring Tor to more places in your home as a way and to connect you to other things in the world. So a few years ago, we worked with Home Assistant project to show how you could use onion addresses to link between different devices at your home and remotely. Orbot supports onion addresses running on your phone. Secure Drop, you might have heard it talk earlier, uses onion addresses. And we're really excited about routing traffic, secure end-to-end, again, over onion addresses, but not for web browsing, for other things. So there's a whole body of work we've done with that. And one of our contributors who's been pioneering that work, leading the way on Onion v3 is Bim, or Bitmold, on GitHub. And I actually met Bim at LibrePlanet. So shout out to LibrePlanet for connecting the dots with collaborators. So I see a lot of talk about Matrix in here. I'd say give it a chance. I think they've done a really good job of trying to push forward how to do encryption in complex ways across multiple devices. That's why we were drawn to it. I get that it's not for everyone, and it doesn't have to be. Their ability to connect to bridges and networks also means you don't have to use Matrix to talk to people on Matrix, which is awesome. So I think that's another really useful thing. Another LibrePlanet moment I wanted to talk about is F-Droid. I remember being with my kids at the Status Center at MIT and being so excited when I saw there was an F-Droid talk at LibrePlanet, because we've actually been supporting F-Droid for a while, again, through collaboration with Hans on my team. And we love the idea of F-Droid. We love the idea of free software, mobile app distribution. This is a key thing most people don't think about, right? So instead of building another secure chat app, maybe figure out how to get apps to people more securely and more freely without intruding and tracking them and advertising against what apps they have, right? So I love F-Droid. A door cam on Tor. So that's what Haven is. So Irish, or who just said that? RWP. I will talk about that in 2 seconds. Anyhow, so F-Droid tackled a unique problem, right? And not only software distribution, but reproducible builds, right? Building from source code and distributing software and having, a Debian-like repository system for mobile. And now it's built into different phones. It was in the Fairphone OS. It was in the, it's in Calyx OS for Android. And we actually we built a version of F-Droid for schools so that schools could distribute software, free software, locally within their schools. So we're really excited about it. The most exciting moment, though, over these last 10 years with F-Droid was when we found out that someone had set up a hotspot, like a Raspberry Pi hotspot, in Cuba, right? Cuba. And they had put F-Droid on it. They had put the F-Droid repository on it. And people could physically go to their store, their mobile shop, and connect to a hotspot without internet and get apps and update their apps. And that was all done because they had found out about open source app distribution through F-Droid, and they could do it themselves and distribute that. And I love that happened. So F-Droid is something that really gave the power of software app distribution in a trustworthy, private, sovereign way with all of these good things, not only to all of us, right? But like this guy in Cuba with a mobile shop. So we also won a prize that Mozilla and the National Science Foundation set up, a competition to say, how could we use F-Droid in disaster situations, humanitarian situations, where you don't have internet, but again, you can stand up a Pi or a hotspot and you can put an app store on it And not only an app, but F-Droid does content distribution too, right? And so we have a whole system called Second Wind that we'll be announcing and working on. But if you've noticed, F-Droid has a lot of offline features now where you can distribute software via a USB stick plugged into your phone. You can connect to a hotspot. So this is the features we've been pushing is like the nearby sync features, all of these things. So I'm really excited about that. All right, so let's get back to Haven. If you haven't seen Haven, I think you can go to gethaven.org, and I will double check that. Oh no, havenapp.org. I should have known that. Yep, havenapp.org. Yeah, so secondwind.guardianproject.info. These are like not launched yet, people, so I just wanted to make sure. The Second Wind thing is still in the kitchen and almost done. Haven, though, is something that is public, and we've been updating it in the project, and we have a new release coming, so I'm excited to share that. So Haven brings the idea of full IoT sensor networks to take any old phone, and you can turn it into a doorbell cam, a home monitor, a pet monitor, a security device, whatever you want. And nothing leaves your phone unless you set it up. And when it does, it goes over Signal or through a Tor Onion. And so you can get alerts. And this project was the brainchild of Edward Snowden. And so one of the most exciting moments of Guardian Project was walking down Mass Ave one day and getting a call from Harlow Holmes at the Freedom of the Press Foundation saying, hey, can you jump on a Jitsi call? And I said, yeah, sure. And I jumped in. I was like walking down the street, and I got in a call, and there was Edward Snowden saying, hey, Nathan, I heard that you're someone who can build things, and I have an idea. And he talked about, wanting a secure way to, again, have freedom over your environment, to know that your physical space is safe and that you can trust it, and that no one's been there, and no one's planted any bugs, and no one has done anything that you don't know about. And so we designed Haven to do that. We found an existing freely licensed project that someone had done the basic work on some of the sensors. We took that, changed it dramatically in terms of what that was for, but I do want to call that out because we start with that. It's rare that we start from scratch, and I'm proud of that. We take work that people have that is compatible in ideology and in licensing, and then we move it forward into something that's useful. So we built this whole Haven experience with the secure notifications, the motion detection, so much more. And now we have video support coming, a totally upgraded signal notifications, hopefully matrix notifications, and a lot more. So shout out to all the folks that have contributed to Haven. And yeah, I use Haven myself when I travel, but I've also used it to keep an eye on my dog. All sorts of things you can do with it. All right, so we're gonna keep going. We've still got plenty of time. I have to get to my ukulele here, and I want to make sure I touch on everything. The two other projects that I want to call out, and as you can, Haven does not require a phone service. No, you can use it. Signal can work over a Wi-Fi only connection. I mentioned Circular, I mentioned Keanu. All right. So another important project that we have that ties into work we've done over the years. Often we've been asked, how do you measure success and how do you measure impact? And we don't like to measure things. We don't like to log anything. We don't like to know how many people use this. Someone asked Connor from SecureDrop earlier, do you have aggregated stats about whistleblowers? And it's actually quite hard to have aggregated stats about anonymous whistleblowers. So we've thought about at Guardian Project, how do we measure success? Downloads, updates, stars, forks of our code, number of, those are good. Things like number of hours worked or 1,000 lines of code, maybe those aren't so good. Quality of code, number of tests, automation, those are good. Number of people we've reached out to, and new volunteers and contributors, right? And happy community, that's good. But what about things like bike rides, family dinners, new recipes, new books read, new skills learned, number of dogs walked, number of waves caught in the ocean? Maybe, how about in IRC right now? How do you measure happiness or success in your life, perhaps? What are some metrics for your projects or your own life you could brainstorm here in IRC? There's also times, metrics we don't want. Middle of the night wake-up calls from server outage incidents, attempts to infect our code or backdoor us to steal our signing keys, people arrested or detained because they were using your app. These are really unfortunate ones that we try to avoid. So we have lots of things. Cat cuddles, that's a good one. I used to have a cat, now I became a dog person. But in a serious note, we've been trying to implement more privacy preserving measurement systems for our tools. So I do want to share clean insights, and a shout out to Benjamin and Hans and Carrie and Gina and Ian and Abel and many of our other teams and all the Guardian Project team. Clean Insights is something that we worked on through this last year of how to build a privacy preserving measurement system. And this isn't tracking, this isn't analytics in any traditional sense, but you need to measure. And if you've ever seen, Tor actually has a great way to measure anonymously. And we've been actually also trying to pioneer privacy preserving log formats. So these are things in weblog formats and standards around that as well. So I really want you to check out the Clean Insights project. It's something that we want to help other projects start implementing. And if you go to the F-Droid blog, you'll see how they have actually implemented it. So I'm very excited about that. All right, so we're coming to a close here. This is my Commodore 64, my real one I had since I was a kid. I said it got smashed open, which is very sad. But you can then, when you smash something open, then you can see how it works, which is very exciting. So you can learn more about these things in the old days. And I'll end by telling a story about the ukulele. So you might think the ukulele is Hawaiian. Ukulele actually began as the Portuguese instrument, the braguinha or machete de braga. Portuguese field workers or workers basically were brought to Hawaii, including some members of my family, my grandma Lucy, to pick sugarcane. And so they brought their instruments. They had these long voyages all the way. Can you imagine going from Madeira Island or Cape Verde all the way to Hawaii? And music kept them alive, and they brought these instruments. And when they got off the boat and started sharing and playing the songs, the Hawaiians loved this instrument. And the royal court took it up, and they really wanted it. But what's interesting is the Portuguese immigrants, Madeiran immigrants, were happy to teach the songs, right? They taught their songs, they taught how to play, they taught how to tune, and the Hawaiians actually took it and they forked it. They made it their own. They said, no, this is a new instrument, this is a new tuning, we're gonna take your ideas and take it in a new way and make new music, new kinds of music with it. So that became the ukulele. And I think it's really interesting to think about stringed instruments. This is called a damian. This is a Tibetan banjo, which is a pretty crazy instrument and makes beautiful music. This awesome, like, rock and roll sounding stuff that is so cool. And so I think if we can think about that, there's a lot of free culture and open source that we can be inspired from and learn from. And the ukulele is one story like that. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to do a song really quick. And we'll see how this goes. And This is one you might know. Join us now and share the software. You'll be free, hackers, you'll be free. Join us now and share the software. You'll be free, hackers, you'll be free. Hoarders may get piles of money. This is true, hackers, that is true. But they cannot help their neighbors. That's not good, hackers, that's not good. When we have enough free software at our call, hackers at our call, we'll throw out those dirty licenses evermore, hackers evermore. Join us now and share the software. You'll be free, hackers, you'll be free. Join us now and share the software. You'll be free, hackers, you'll be free. You'll be free, hackers, you'll be free. All right, everybody. Thanks for having me. Take care of yourselves. And I think that's all I got for today.
Thank you very much, Nathan. And we appreciate it. This has been an excellent presentation.
Privacy filter. All right. I hope everyone was singing. And yeah, if you want to learn about Tibetan banjo, it's called the Damyen. You can hear about it on YouTube. And you can reach me. I'm Nate Freight in a lot of places. And Nathan at guardianproject.info and at Nate Freight on matrix.org. So many other places. And I'm around. We love contributors. We'd love to hear from all of you. And I'll hang out in IRC if there's more questions.